Hello, crazy ones. Today we're going through the three lessons I learned from 35 letters that John D. Rockefeller wrote to his son. In many ways, you can look at this as the autobiography of John D. Rockefeller. He was a pretty private guy, but these letters are super incredible. Like this, if this was a motivational self-help book, it would be at least 100 times better than a book like Napoleon Hill's Principles of Success or whatever the book is called, because these are the people that who have John D. Rockefeller has been very successful, and he's not only he's been successful, but he studies success. Like he studies what makes successful people successful, and he has a teacher's brain, meaning that he tries to analyze how does it work and how do I explain it to other people. So super amazing read. And basically, the three lessons I want to share with you is the principle of dream big and don't give a damn anybody tells you to not dream big, even when you're a kid. Lesson two is business is war for a few reasons. And three is that don't be a regurgitator or jargonist. And there's a lot of educated fools in this world, and your degrees do not mean you're smart. All right, so let's get to it. Basically, John D. Rockefeller, he's very honest in his letters to his son that since he was like a very little kid and they were poor, um, John wanted to become the richest man on earth. And the thing that you might hear these days is that, oh, the people that think that they will be a billionaire will never be a billionaire because the people who are billionaires today never thought they would be billionaires. And to some degree, but that happens, but that doesn't mean that people who want to be a billionaire, even though when they're small or a kid or a teenager, that is the wrong thing to do. That's nonsense. Because in order to have any goal, you have to have a plan. And you can't have the plan if you don't know the goal. And John's goal was to become the richest. So he laid out a plan from early age. He wanted to work for a good employer, and then he started his own business. And little by little, he put himself in the right situations to become the richest. And this reminds me of two other stories. Kobe Bryant, since he was a kid, in his buses with his dad when he was playing either in the well, not in the NBA, but when he was playing abroad in Europe, he would tell people like, "I'll be the best player in the NBA." And to hear that from a 11-year-old kid was crazy back then, and to see how Kobe got that close to it, and for a period he was the best, goes to show you that you can have a big dream, and does like there's nothing wrong with having it and stating it since you're a kid. Nobody gives a damn. And another example of this is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, since he was like a little kid, even less than 10 years old, had the dream of becoming the richest. Um, and he might seem like a very humble or like not wealth chasing guy, but he wanted that. Even though he doesn't buy stuff for himself, but he likes making money. And one funny thing that John D. Rockefeller says in his letters is that, uh, son, um, I like making money. I don't like money. That there's a difference between the two. It's like a game. It's like fishing. It's like going to the basketball court and making 10 threes in a row. It's a very different thing. Okay, so that's the first lesson. The second lesson is um, business is war. And this came apparent to me after I listened to a few stories he was saying regarding business dealings that he had and how he was drawing lessons from generals in war and how and that like and a lot of I guess business people of the past did that, but you see some in the current days do that as well, in that you look at it in the lens of war from the perspective of how do I treat my troops? How do I make my troops work their best and be the most motivated and be brave? And that becomes apparent to employees. Then the other aspect of it is how do I destroy my competitors? And from there, at least in John's story, there's many examples, and to me, it seemed very revealing that, like, a lot of people want to be rich, but a lot of people are not obsessed with becoming rich. They want to use money for making a change in this world, right? But there are also people that just want to be rich and they're obsessed about it, and they will cross as many lines as possible to get that done. And you've seen those people as well. You can see that in lower levels of wealth as well. I mean, criminals are an example for that, or thieves are an example for that. But the thing that we need to understand is, in the game, money is important. It has been important in this world and will continue to be important in this world. And what that means is that if you want to be very, very, very rich, a lot of people see the power that comes with that, and they're obsessed with having it for themselves, and that means they will do anything to have that. If countries go to war over resources such as water, gold, or oil, it goes to show you that for and that those are examples of money. Those are examples of resources that can be exchanged for money. Um, if some people in the world are willing to go to war, and by war I mean real war, where everything is on the line, imagine the worst crimes they will be done to become the richest. And because some people will do that, even though you don't want to do that as a business person, you have to be prepared for that. And if it means you have to be prepared for that, it means you have to learn from war stories as well. So this is something that, even though I don't want to be obsessed about having money, I just want to be rich to change the world for the better. Um, it's something you have to be prepared for, because money is important in life, and some people take it too far and just have to be ready and defeat them in battle. All right, third lesson. Um, and this was very funny, and it's a common theme as I'm reading biographies that goes decades to decades in past history. This lesson becomes more apparent, um, which is the lesson of, just because you have a degree, you're not smart, and in fact, you're an educated fool. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of people that can say, there's the aphorism in the Poor Richard's Almanac, that is by Ben Franklin, that says that there was a person that knew the name of basically a horse in 15 different languages, but when he wanted to travel from a city to city, he rode a cow, which goes to show you that they have the fancy word regurgitator jargon knowledge, but they don't know the practical knowledge. They don't know what to do in practice that is the optimal thing to do. And this comes from a lot of people just learning stuff but not doing stuff. Uh, and a lot of people that are in the academic space are that, basically. A lot of people comment on the economy and the fact that how people are incapable of becoming rich when they haven't even tried to be an entrepreneur and make money. A lot of people say it's impossible to get out of my 9 to 5 job, and they're basically news in the news business, or say that people cannot do anything to become rich when they haven't even tried to start a business or learn about sales, learn about marketing. But they're basically educated fools. They can sound fancy, they can look sharp in a suit, but it doesn't mean they're educated. And to me, it changed my definition for what I call being knowledgeable, and that is when you just can state, okay, these are the rules 1 through 10. When you even read a book on success and you memorize the highlighted portions, you just remember the stuff. You don't know it yet. Unless you do it, you do not know it. And this is how I'm defining knowledge, to make it a better definition. Knowing something is you knowing how to operate and use it in a practical sense, and it's part of what you do. And unless you do that, you don't know it. You just remember what you read in a book. And the things you get with knowing and the things you get with remembering are different things. It's very interesting. Like, it's like, oh, I wrote about, let's say one principles in building business. Do do do. It's hard to come up with an example. I'll come up with an example. One sec. Um, Actually, let's go with. Actually, let's go with an example of Apple. Apple was a company that was a design-based company in a world of engineers and hardware and percentages and efficiencies and yada yada yada. Um, to be caring about design was a unique thing to do. And in many ways, when people looked at how Microsoft became much, much bigger than Apple, and from the 80s to 2000s, they thought, oh, if you care about design, you're wasting your time and money. The consumer doesn't care about that. And people with the degrees in market efficiency would say, oh, the consumer just cares about the lowest price for achieving something. And these people are regurgitators. But what they're missing, and with something that it's kind of like the education is blinding them and making them more of a fool, is that if you are in day-to-day life, you realize that people love beauty. People are attracted to beauty. They're attracted to beautiful forests, they're attracted to beautiful buildings, they're attracted to beautiful people, they're attracted to beautiful cars. So if there are people that are attracted to that, when it comes to technology, there's a piece of technology and both are have, let's say, different. Let's say the Microsoft thing has 100 features, the Apple thing has 50 features, half the feature but more beautiful. If you're any human that has open eyes and a practical sense of what's happening in the streets in regular life, you realize that some people are biased toward the design, toward beauty, and they're gonna buy the thing. So a lot of people might doubt Apple and not invest in the company, and they have very fancy degrees, but they're just educated fools. So this is an example of how it happens in real life, and it's something about. And the reason I said it's interesting because I'm getting more and more examples of this, is that going to university and college really became a thing. Let's say from 1920s onwards. Before that, let's say from 1860s to 1920s, we had the industrialization, and slowly some people become very well versed with like coming up with new techniques and building stuff, and that became very profitable for companies. And then people and these factories needed more educated workers to develop more complicated products like cars. And then the degree thing rose and rose. 1960s, 1970s, and 1970s it grew even much, much, much more. As society become more abundant, and the student loan thing happened where the government was funding these degrees. But throughout that, this 100 year, even beyond 100 year history, this pattern has always existed. There's always been people that knew about this that would say, oh, just because you went to a fancy degree school doesn't mean you're smart or you're going to be successful. And people are putting too much value on the label and the stamp of approval that comes with the brand of a fancy school. Because at that point, you're an educated fool. You're not smart. You're not knowledgeable if you haven't done stuff. And these are the three lessons from the 35 letters that John D. Rockefeller wrote to his son. Definitely recommend the book. This is one of those books that I'm going to be rereading and rereading and rereading. In fact, at this point, I've listened to it 3 times. is a pretty quick listen, and definitely a highly recommended one. So until next time, crazy ones. See you. Have an awesome one.